It is 1998, and the French island of Corsica is on edge. Claude Rignac, the Prefect Governor of Corsica, has been assassinated by separatist militants, and the nation reels from the shock, and Paris resolves to reassert authority. In response, the French government dispatches a new prefect, Bonnet, a man with a reputation for iron-fisted law enforcement. His mission, declared by Interior Minister Jean-Pierre Chevènement, is to restore the rule of law on the restive island, and Bonnet arrives just 3 days after Rignac's murder, stepping into a climate of fear, anger, and defiance. From the moment Bonnet sets foot on Corsican soil, he shows zero tolerance for lawlessness. He invokes Article 40 of the Penal Code, at every turn a provision obliging officials to report any illegal activity they learn often. No violation is too small to pursue. This hardline approach alarms many local leaders, who bristle at what they see as Parisian overreach. But on the French mainland, many applaud Bonnet's toughness, and here at last is a prefect who will stand up to Corsica's endemic corruption and violence. Bonnet seems to embody the Republic's resolve. At a meeting of the Corsican Assembly in October 1998, with separatist politicians needling him, Bonnet responds with cutting defiance. Asked when he plans to leave Corsica, he snaps. When your friends stop racketeering, when your friends stop the assassinations at village festivals, when your friends stop planting explosives, such words leave little doubt. Bonnet sees himself as a lone crusader for justice in a land of lawlessness. His tongue is sharp, his convictions uncompromising. Yet, lurking beneath his righteous zeal is a dangerous passion. The ancient philosopher Seneca cautioned that the sword of justice is ill placed in the hands of an angry man. Standard Books. Org. In the months to come, Bonnet's anger and determination to impose order at any cost will ignite a firestorm, both literally and morally, that will test the very principles he swore to uphold. It's a visual cue, a montage of 1990s Corsica, solemn funerals for Prefect Rignac, Bonnet arriving on the island, scowling in a suit, gendarmes patrolling streets. The atmosphere is tense and expectant. Chapter 2e. The Prefect's Crusade, and the paillotes. To understand the drama that will unfold, one must know about Corsica's paillotes, rustic beachfront restaurants, often little more than wooden shacks with straw roofs. Picturesque and popular. Many operate illegally on the public shoreline, flouting zoning laws. Some are even suspected of ties to nationalist groups, potential havens for money laundering or funding militant activities. To Bonnet, these unauthorized establishments are a symbol of lawlessness he is determined to erase. By early 1999, Prefect Bonnet has trained his sights on the paillotes. In April, as the tourist season nears, he launches a bold strike. On April 9, 1999, acting on a court order, Bonnet sends military bulldozers rumbling onto Mare Isle Beach, intent on demolishing 2 illegal seaside restaurants. The scene is fraught with high drama as blades bite into sand. A crowd of enraged locals and Corsican nationalists rushes to confront the forces of the state. They form a human barricade in the surf. Among them is Yves F.A. Raud, owner of a famous paillote called Chez Francis and a known nationalist sympathizer. By his side stand even prominent politicians. Former Minister François Léotard and Corsican Assembly President José Rossi, publicly backing the paillotiers against the prefect. Bonnet watches this standoff on the sand with jaw clenched. The crowds refuse to budge. Tension crackles in the salty air. Under orders from Paris to avoid bloodshed, Bonnet has little choice. Humiliatingly, the prefect backs down. He agrees to halt the demolitions in exchange for a written promise from 8 paillote owners that they will voluntarily dismantle their illegal restaurants at the end of the summer season. The mob cheers, the bulldozers withdraw. Bonnet's victory against illegality has been thwarted by raw local resistance and political pressure. That evening, Bonnet's mood is thunderous. In private, he fumes that the rule of law has been held hostage by unruly locals and cowardly politics. The defeat cuts especially deep because Chez Francis, F.A. Raud's paillote, remains defiantly standing. This shack, illegally perched on the idyllic Cala d'Orzu beach, has become the focal point of Bonnet's wrath. To him, it represents an insult to the Republic's authority and a personal affront. Bonnet fears, with good reason, that the owner's promises to self-demolish are empty words. Come end of season, the paillotes will likely still be there, thumbing their noses at him. His frustration grows by the day, gnawing at him like a fever. Anger, if not restraint, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it, Hoffman Dan Body. Seneca wisely noted. Bonnet's anger now smolders unrestrained. The injury to his pride and authority provokes thoughts of drastic action. He tells himself it's for the greater good, to show that the state cannot be defied with impunity. But in truth, wounded ego and indignation are guiding his hand. In the coming nights, a drastic plan forms in the prefect's mind, one that will sidestep the failed legal process altogether. Bonnet is about to cross a line, from enforcing the law to taking the law into his own hands. A visual cue. Evening sunlight fades over the Mare Isle beach. Bulldozers retreat, Bonnet in his office at dusk, gazing out stunnily as he loosens his tie. Perhaps show a close up of a memo on his desk about illegal constructions, crumpled in frustration. Chapter 30: Conspiracy in the Shadows. In the aftermath of the April 9 fiasco, whispers fill the corridors of the prefecture in Ajaccio. Bernard Bonnet convenes a secret meeting with his most trusted officers. Present is Colonel Henry Mazarez, the commander of the gendarmerie in Corsica, a veteran officer loyal to the state. Also in the room, Bonnet's chief of staff, Gerard Pardini, a former intelligence man and Bonnet's right-hand aide PM Net. Perhaps a few elite gendarmes of the GPS, Groupe de Pelotons DSA Curité stand by, the unit tasked with sensitive security operations. The room is thick with cigarette smoke and tension. Bonnet's voice is low and cold. He speaks of Ches Francis and the other paillotes still squatting on public land. Of the Republic's honor at stake, the legal route has failed. Their bulldozers were met with cowards and traitors. He might snarl. According to later court testimony, Prefect Bonnet never gives a direct written order to commit a crime affair. Instead, he implies what must be done. Perhaps he says something like, "That payload at Cala d'Orzu, I want it gone." If the law can't be enforced by day, then he leaves the sentence hanging in the air, unfinished but unmistakable. Colonel Mazarez understands perfectly. At first, an uneasy silence. To burn down an illegal restaurant in the dead of night, it's an extreme and illegal act, essentially state-sponsored arson. One might imagine a junior officer's stomach lurching with doubt. In fact, we know that Lieutenant Colonel Bertrand Cavalier, the deputy gendarmerie commander, objected to this plan for Wikipedia.org. Cavalier would later tell a judge that he spoke out against the scheme from the staff for Wikipedia.org, but his protest is overruled. In this small circle, loyalty to the prefect and reason of state carry the day over personal conscience. The conspirators proceed to refine their plot. They decide the GPS unit will carry it out as a covert surveillance mission. They will strike at Ches Francis, the highest profile target, as a warning and example. Chief of Staff Pardini even prepares fake cover materials. Under Bonnet's direction, he drafts bogus pamphlets to leave at the crime scene as PM Net, designed to mislead investigators. These leaflets will accuse Yves F.A. Rod of snitching on cops, creating the illusion of a revenge attack by fellow Corsicans for Wikipedia.org. Every detail is considered. The aim is to make the arson look like just another episode of Corsica's internecine feuds, rather than an operation orchestrated by the French state itself. In this pivotal moment, each man in the room faces a moral crossroads. They have all sworn oaths to uphold the law. Now they conspire to break it in the name of justice. If only they had recalled the simple maxim of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Goodreads. In hatching this deceitful, unlawful plan, they violate both halves of that principle. But no one heeds such wisdom. The momentum toward violence carries them forward. Orders are given, tacit or explicit. The elite GPS team receives its instructions through knowing nods and code words. They stockpile jerrycans of gasoline and dark clothing. A date is set for the clandestine mission, the night of April 19, 1999. The die is cast. A visual cue inside a dimly lit office. Bonnet leans over a table map of Corsica's coast with Mazarez. Fingers stab at the location of Ches Francis, close, up on a typewriter or computer as Pardini types out a fake leaflet with the words, F.A. Rod balance. Visible tension on a younger officer's face. Cavalier, as he realizes what is being planned. At Chapter 40, Night of Fire at Cala d'Orzu, April 19, 1999. Midnight drapes the Corsican coastline in darkness. At Cala d'Orzu, the moon's pale glow reflects on gentle waves. The beach is remote, accessible by a winding dirt road and by sea. Nestled by the water is Ches Francis, the beloved seaside restaurant now shuttered for the night. Its timber frame and reed thatched roof stand silhouetted against the starry sky, a peaceful scene soon to be shattered. Under the cover of night, three figures in black approach the payload. They are gendarmes of the GPS, moving with practiced stealth. One is Captain Norbert Ambros, the GPS unit commander for Wikipedia.org, personally leading the operation. The stillness of the hour is broken only by the hushed crunch of their boots in the sand. In gloved hands they carry fuel canisters and a small radio set tuned to their secured frequency. Their faces are masked by Kagul's balaclavas, hiding identities, but also, perhaps, the flicker of doubt in their eyes. 100 a.m. The assailants silently force open a door of Ches Francis. Inside, the dining hut is rustic and empty, smelling of sea salt and old wood. One man begins dousing the wooden walls and straw roof with gasoline, his heart pounding at the risk. Another splashes fuel across the bar and tables, where tourists by day would feast on grilled fish and Corsican wine. Captain Ambros stands watch, scanning the tree line and beach for any unwelcome visitors. For a moment, the captain hesitates. This is no ordinary mission, but a crime. Yet he steels himself with the thought that he is following orders from the highest authority on the island. The prefect wants a message sent. With a final grim nod, Ambros gives the signal. Whoosh! A bright flare of a lighter and the crackle of flame. Instantly the dry thatching of the roof catches fire. In seconds, flames shoot upward, illuminating the beach in an eerie orange glow. The men hurry out, tossing the last jerrycan to feed the blaze. Fire roars to life hungrily, consuming the hut's timbers. The scene is otherworldly palms and nearby rocks bathed in flickering light, the tranquil cove awakened by an act of destruction. Suddenly, an unexpected burst, perhaps a gas canister or stove inside the restaurant explodes with a thunderous bang. A fireball surges, and Captain Ambros is caught by the blast's edge. He stumbles out of the inferno with flames clinging to his clothing. Agony, he tears off his burning balaclava, searing his hands and face. His men rush to drag him away from the collapsing, blazing structure. In the chaos, their equipment is scattered. A compass falls in the sand. Crucially, Ambros's radio transceiver, an Alcatel Corel unit, slips from his grasp and is left behind, along with the bloodied hood he ripped off Wikipedia.org. They hadn't planned for this mishap. Panicked but disciplined, the commandos retreat. They hastily bury the empty jerrycans, the compass, and anything incriminating under sand and scrub nearby for Wikipedia.org. Supporting their injured captain, the gendarmes vanish into the night, possibly picked up by a boat off the coast or a covert vehicle on a back road. The mission is over in minutes. Behind them, Ches Francis is fully engulfed, its wooden pillars now pillars of flame. The night sky glows an ominous red that can be seen from neighboring coves. On this quiet night, a crime of state has been committed. As the inferno devours the beloved beach hut, one can't help but recall Seneca's warning. Anger is a short madness. In his wrathful crusade, Bonnet's men have unleashed madness on this shore. The flames dance and the roof of Ches Francis collapses in sparks, sending a plume of smoke towards the stars. The deed is done, and there is no going back. A visual cue, a cinematic sequence, dark silhouettes pouring gasoline, slow motion of flames igniting and whooshing up. The panicked scramble when an explosion lights up the night, perhaps a wide aerial shot of the cove, with the burning hut visible in the darkness. Chapter 5. The morning after ashes and outrage, dawn breaks over Cala d'Orzu, with the smell of smoke hanging in the salty air. Where the quaint restaurant Ches Francis once stood, there is now a blackened skeleton of charred wood, wisps of smoke still rising from the ruins. News of the nighttime inferno spreads rapidly across Corsica. Locals arrive at the beach, aghast. The once cheerful gathering spot and institution, beloved by many, has been reduced to a Shizoropa one. The sight feels like a gut punch to the community. Onuyi's Fa Rod is seen in tears of rage and sorrow, surveying the destruction of his livelihood. Although his establishment violated the law, it had been a source of pride and income for his family. Now it lies in cinders. Initial speculation about the culprits runs wild. Corsica in the 1990s is no stranger to violent score settling. Many assume this could be an attack by rival nationalists or mafia-style arson over unpaid debts or vendettas. Indeed, Prefect Bonnet himself fans the flames of disinformation. When asked about the fire, he publicly suggests it might be the result of an internal feud among Corsican separatists and Wikipedia.org. Perhaps, he posits, some extremist group punished F.A. Rod for being too close to authorities. F.A. Rod balanced Diz flicks. F.A. Rod snitches on cops. As the planted flyers at the scene claimed fra Wikipedia.org. This narrative neatly fits the pattern of Corsica's troubles and conveniently deflects suspicion away from the state. Indeed, investigators initially consider the possibility of a local feud. The local gendarmerie of Pietrosella, the jurisdiction for that area, secure the scene. They do find the scattered leaflets near the wreckage that read, F.A. Rod balanced Diz flicks, seemingly accusing the owner of informing to police for Wikipedia.org. To some, this suggests a rival nationalist faction torched the place as retribution. For a brief moment, Bonnet's deception holds. The tragedy seems poised to be written off as just another Corsican night of vendetta. But the physical evidence stubbornly tells another story. As forensic teams sift through the debris, they uncover something highly unusual buried in the sand not far from the ruined hut. On April 23, 1999, 4 days after the fire, investigators unearthed 2 empty jerrycans, a blood-stained balaclava, and an Alcatel-Corel radio transceiver. Wikipedia.org. The radio is a specialized piece of gear, and it is still tuned to the frequency used by the GPS, the elite gendarme unit for Wikipedia.org. The investigators exchange glances, a chill runs down their spines. These items belong to the forces of order. Almost simultaneously, another clue comes to light hundreds of miles away on the French mainland. A severely burned man was admitted anonymously to Ranguil Hospital in Toulouse around the time of the arson, having been airlifted from a military hospital. Wikipedia.org. Through quiet inquiries, authorities identify him as Captain Norbert Ambros, the very commander of the GPS unit in Corsica. Wikipedia.org. He's suffering second-degree burns to his face, hands, and leg injuries consistent with a sudden fire. The pieces of the puzzle are falling into place with damning clarity. Suddenly, the unthinkable becomes evident. Those sworn to uphold the law may have perpetrated this crime. The hunter has become the hunted. The investigation now shifts into high gear. But its target is no longer shadowy Corsican militants. It is the French state's own representatives. The men and women of law enforcement who discover these facts are stunned. Many are Corsicans themselves, loyal to the Republic, now grappling with the betrayal by their superiors. One can imagine an investigator at the scene picking up the sand-caked radio, the light of realization in her eyes. The very tool a gendarme would use to call in backup is here, half melted, at a crime scene. This is incontrovertible evidence. The conspiracy of silence begins to crumble. Truth has a way of emerging, just as the Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us that injustice never rules forever. Squoots. Come in a matter of days, the secret that Bernard Bonnet and his circle tried to bury literally in the sand is exposed under the bright light of justice. The stage is now set for a dramatic confrontation, the law versus those who abused the law. The Republic will have to turn its wrath on its own prefect. A visual cued morning light on the burned ruins, close-ups of investigators collecting the balaclava and radio from sand. Cut to a sterile hospital room in Toulouse. A man's bandaged face, the Ambros unconscious in bed under guard, perhaps show a newspaper front page with headlines about the Pilote Chez Francis. Fire and growing scandal. Chapter 6c. The truth unravels, just following orders. As evidence mounts, the French authorities move decisively. On April 26, 1999, Judge Patrice Camberoux, the investigative magistrate, issues orders to round up the suspects. 5 gendarmes are swiftly taken into custody and placed under formal investigation. A mise en examen fra Wikipedia.org. Among them, Captain Norbert Ambros, lying in his hospital bed, and Colonel Henry Mazarez, the regional gendarmerie chief. Wikipedia.org. The shockwave through the force is seismic. A colonel and his men under arrest like common criminals. But Judge Camberoux is unflinching. He even has them held in preventive detention to prevent any cover-up or collusion for Wikipedia.org. Under intense interrogation, the truth spills forth. 3 GPS officers confess that they deliberately set the payload ablaze on Colonel Mazarez's orders for Wikipedia.org. They recount the planning, the execution, likely with emotions of remorse and relief. The burden of silence lifted at last. Confronted with his men's testimonies, and the physical evidence, Colonel Mazarez cracks. He admits that yes, he ordered the hut burned, on Prefect Bonnet's instructions. Far, Wikipedia. Org. The chain of command leading to Bonnet is now firmly established by multiple accounts. With these revelations, the unassailable wall around Prefect Bonnet tumbles down. He is no longer the top authority on the island, but a suspect in a crime. The French government acts quickly. Bonnet is suspended from his duties as Prefect of Corsica. Wikipedia. Org. In the early hours of May 3, 1999, Bernard Bonnet is arrested and taken into custody in Ajaccio. Wikipedia. Org. Alongside him, Gerard Pardini, his chief of staff and co-plotter, is also detained for Wikipedia. Org. They are soon flown to Paris under guard for further questioning. Wikipedia. Org. A dramatic reversal of fortune for a man who, until days ago, wielded the authority of the French state. In a final twist, the moral conscience in this saga steps forward. Lieutenant Colonel Bertrand Cavalier, the very officer who had objected to the plan in the first place, now becomes a whistleblower. On May 3, Cavalier requests to be heard by Judge Cambrofer. Wikipedia. Org. He brings with him a secret weapon. He had clandestinely recorded a conversation with Colonel Mazarez about the operation for Wikipedia. Org. In that recording, details of the payload plot and Bonnet's awareness are evident. Cavalier confirms to the judge that the arson was commandite, commissioned by Mazarez, that his Cavalier voiced opposition, and crucially that Prefect Bonnet was fully informed for Wikipedia. Org. This recording is the final nail in the coffin of denial. It provides undeniable proof that Bernard Bonnet was complicit, even if he never signed a paper ordering Ches Francis to be burned. That same evening, the Prefect and Pardini, already in custody, are formally charged with complicity in destruction of property by organized arson, essentially conspiracy to commit arson for Wikipedia. Org. They are transferred to prison to await trial, joining the ranks of those they once commanded for Wikipedia. Org. Bonnet, still defiant, claims he is the victim of a judicial conspiracy, insisting he never gave such an order for Wikipedia. Org. But his protests ring hollow against the tapestry of evidence and testimony. The scandal reaches Paris and the highest levels of government. Prime Minister Lionel Jospin, embarrassed and eager to contain the fallout, addresses the National Assembly. "It's an affair of the state, not a state affair," he famously declares for Wikipedia. Org. Word, playing to suggest this is a localized wrongdoing by individuals, not a reflection of government policy. President Jacques Chirac, however, is gravely concerned. He demands that the facts be brought to light and responsibilities established. Far. Wikipedia. Org. The implication is clear: no one, not even a prefect, is above the law. For Bernard Bonnet, now sitting in a jail cell, the turn of events is dizzying. In a matter of weeks he has gone from Corsica's top lawman to an accused criminal. History has seen many powerful figures fall, but this is nearly unprecedented. A prefect of the Republic in handcuffs for an act of state-sponsored vigilantism. It's a personal tragedy of hubris and a public scandal of the highest order. If Bonnet had imagined himself as a hero avenging the state's honor, he now confronts a harsher reality, that he has grievously betrayed the very rule of law he was meant to uphold. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once wrote, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." Goodreads. In this crucible of crisis, Bernard Bonnet's true character is revealed to all. The pressure of Corsica's turmoil did not justify his wrongdoing. It only exposed his overweening pride and anger. Likewise, these circumstances revealed the character of others. The officers who blindly obeyed versus the one-man Cavalier, who had the courage to say, "No, this is wrong." The time for reckoning has arrived. A visual cue. A convoy of police vehicles at dawn, leaving the prefecture with Bonnet inside, photographers flashing. In a Paris courtroom sketch-style image of Bonnet in cuffs, Cavalier handing over a tape recorder to the judge. Split screen of Jospin speaking in Parliament, and Chirac at a podium expressing stern resolve. Chapter 7. Judgment and lessons learned. The legal consequences of the affair have play out over the next few years, gripping France. The trial begins on 19th November 2001 in the Correctional Court of Ajaccio. Wikipedia. Org. The courtroom is packed: journalists, Corsican citizens, officials, all eager to see how justice handles this case of betrayal at the highest level. Bernard Bonnet, in the defendant's seat, maintains a steely posture. Throughout the trial, he attempts to downplay his role, insisting there was never a direct order, perhaps hoping an implicit suggestion might not meet the definition of a crime. His former subordinates, however, testify in detail about how the plan was conceived and executed. Gerard Pardini admits to drafting the misleading tracts under Bonnet's dictation CPM. Net, the GPS gendarmes describe receiving unofficial instructions. The burned Captain Ambrose, scarred from the incident, speaks to the operation he led. Colonel Miserez, dignity tarnished, recounts the fatal conversation with his prefect. After 3 weeks of intense hearings, the verdict comes on 11th of January 2002. Wikipedia.org. The judgment is clear. Bernard Bonnet is found guilty. The court deems him the instigator of the arson. Wikipedia.org. He is sentenced to 3 years in prison, with 2 years suspended, meaning 1 year to serve it, and a further 3 years banned from civic rights. For Wikipedia.org. Bonnet's face, as the sentences read, finally shows a crack in its armor, a flicker of pain, perhaps disbelief. Alongside him, Pardini is sentenced to 30 months in prison, 24 months suspended, 6 months firm. For Wikipedia.org. Colonel Miserez receives 30 months, 24 suspended, 6 firm. For Wikipedia.org. Captain Ambrose gets 18 months, 12 suspended, 6 firm. For Wikipedia.org. The 5 other gendarmes, the lower ranking participants who carried out orders, are each given 18 months suspended sentences, no jail time, but criminal conviction nonetheless. For Wikipedia.org. The court shows some leniency to the foot soldiers who likely felt compelled by duty, giving them suspended terms. But for the leaders, the message is unmistakable. They will pay a price for this breach of justice. In its written decision, the court underscores a fundamental principle. Even though Chez Francis was an illicit structure on state-owned land, that in no way gave the prefect license to destroy it by extrajudicial means. For Wikipedia.org. The rule of law cannot be bent to one man's will, not even a prefect's. Bonnet and his co-conspirators are also ordered to pay damages to the victims. Around 17,600 euros, covering the destroyed restaurant's contents are far to Wikipedia.org. It's a modest sum, but symbolically it affirms that wrong was done to the owner, despite his own illegal operating status. Bonnet, stubborn as ever, appeals the verdict. The case goes to the Court of Appeal in Bastia in late 2002. There, Bonnet even employs the famous lawyer Jacques Vergès, known for defending controversial figures. Wikipedia.org. Vergès spins a conspiratorial tale, arguing that Bonnet was set up by elements in the government, a barbuzade, a dirty trick meant to remove a troublesome prefect, because Paris was shifting to a softer line with Corsican separatists. For Wikipedia.org. This theory captivates the press but holds little water legally. On the 15th of January 2003, the Bastia Appeals Court upholds all the major convictions. For Wikipedia.org. Bonnet is still guilty. The punishments stand. Finally, Bonnet appeals to the nation's highest court, the Court of Cassation. In October 2004, it rejects his appeal, definitively ending the judicial saga. For Wikipedia.org. That same day in a Le Monde interview, Bernard Bonnet at last acknowledges his responsibility. Wikipedia.org. He concedes that there was indeed an order, implicit but not formalized, as he carefully words it. For Wikipedia.org. It's a subtle way of admitting that, yes, his nod and wink lit the spark that others followed. This admission, though late, is significant. The once defiant prefect finally bows to the truth. In essence, he says, I did it, though I never wrote it down. No presidential pardon comes. President Chirac declines Bonnet's request in 2010. Then, Wikipedia.org. However, due to France's rules and Bonnet's lack of prior record, he never actually returns to jail. After the initial detention, he benefits from parole's conditional release in 2000 since Wikipedia.org and quietly retires from public service with a regular pension. And Wikipedia.org. A coda that leaves a bitter taste for some. The gendarmes involved are reassigned away from Corsica, their careers forever marked by the scandoffer. Wikipedia.org. And what of the paillotes? In a touch of irony, many illegal beach restaurants on Corsica eventually were dismantled or legalized through proper channels in subsequent years. Chez Francis itself was rebuilt after 1999, only to face further legal battles and dismantling later. The island moved on, but the memory of this affair des paillotes lingers as a cautionary tale of zealotry gone astray. Chapter 8. Reflections, the moral of the tale. The story of Bernard Bonnet and the burned paillote is more than just a notorious legal case. It is a moral fable for all who wield power or find themselves under orders. The emotional journey from the righteous anger of a prefect to a secretive crime, to the agony of a burned officer, to the humiliation of arrest, and finally the cold clarity of the courtroom, offers lessons that resonate far beyond Corsica. It forces us to ask, what is the cost of enforcing the law by breaking it? And what is the duty of an individual when given an unjust order? One clear lesson shines through the smoke and ashes: the power of saying no. Throughout this saga, the most heroic figure may well be the one who refused to go along. Lieutenant Colonel Cavalier, who internally objected and later blew the whistle, exemplified what the Stoics would call virtue and courage in the face of pressure. It isn't easy to dissent, to risk one's career by telling a powerful boss that he is wrong. Yet, conscience demanded it. Had more people in that room with Bonnet found the courage to say, "Non, Monsieur le Préfet, on n'y fait pas. No, we will not do this," the tragedy could have been averted. No career ambition or chain of command deference can justify participating in wrongdoing. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." In that critical moment, being a good man meant standing up to an unlawful directive. Sadly, several men who were likely good people, dedicated officers, failed to say no, and thus lost themselves. They obeyed orders they knew were wrong, perhaps telling themselves they were serving a greater good, or simply unable to disobey a superior. But the Stoics teach that one's first loyalty must be to moral integrity, not to any earthly authority. No one expressed this more forcefully than Epictetus, who reminded us that ultimately we control our own actions and assent. The gendarmes had a choice, and though it was difficult, they were not absolved by just following orders. The trial's outcome underscored that principle in legal terms, much as history did after World War II. Each individual is responsible for their decision to do right or wrong. Bernard Bonnet's personal journey is a study in the corrupting nature of unchecked zeal and anger. His initial mission was noble, to uphold the law, but in allowing his fury and ego to take over, he undermined the very cause he championed. He could have been remembered as a courageous prefect who stood up to crime. Instead, he is remembered as the overzealous official who became a criminal himself. There is a Stoic lesson here about moderation and wisdom. Seneca warned that anger, if not restraint, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it, of mind and body. Bonnet's anger at the paillote owners and the slight to his authority led him to commit a far greater injury, one that hurt not only its immediate targets, but himself, his men, and the integrity of the state. His name became tarnished, his career ended in disgrace. Truly, the fire he set on that beach consumed him as well, metaphorically, just as it did Captain Ambrose physically. Yet, even in this dark tale, there is an element of catharsis and reaffirmation of justice. The Republic did not ultimately tolerate a crime, even committed in its name. Investigators did their duty without cover up, judges pursued truth fearlessly, and the law was applied fairly to the lawbreakers, high and low. The outcome, while not undoing the crime, sent a message that France's institutions could correct themselves. In the end, no one is above the law. The affair of the paillotes thus stands as a stark reminder to all public servants: the ends do not justify the means, when the means betray the law itself. As we conclude this narrative, we reflect on those charred ruins on a Corsican beach and what they represent. They remind us that every public trust is a fragile pact. Once broken, it is hard to rebuild. They remind us of the human cost of folly: a decorated officer disfigured, a community shocked, a nation's confidence in its officials shaken. And they remind us of the timeless wisdom of the Stoics, that character is destiny. In moments of temptation or fury, when one might rationalize an unethical act for a noble cause, the Stoic voices urge restraint and honor. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius counsel at Gudrid's. Calm advice Bernard Bonnet and his men would forever wish they had heeded. A visual cues. Epilogue montage, the ruins of Ches Francis with weeds growing. Bonnet years later in civilian clothes leaving a courthouse. A quote from Marcus Aurelius appearing on screen. Conclude with a slow pan of the tranquil Corsican beach at sunset. nature reclaiming the spot where hubris burned itself out.